Okay, so today we're going to talk about limits. Usually what happens is we start with a picture. In this case, I'm starting with a picture of f of x equals x squared plus 2. And the way we read example number 1 is the limit of the function f of x as x approaches 0, and then that little minus sign after that 0 means from the negative direction. If you look at number 2, that's the limit of the same function f of x as x approaches 0, and then that little plus sign to the right of the 0 means from the positive direction. Now from the negative direction and the positive direction, you just kind of want to think of it like you would a number line. Coming from the negative direction would mean you're coming from the left. Coming from the positive direction means you're coming from the right. So let's look at example number 1. So if we're coming from the left-hand side, what you're doing is, or from the negative direction, is you're coming from that direction. And it's asking you to look at the picture as x approaches 0. So as we get closer to an x value of 0, so as we come along here, and as we get closer to an x value of 0, do you see that our y value is 2? Okay, and that's how we evaluate a limit, is we look as we get closer to the x value that they're asking us to get closer to, what y value am I approaching? That's really what your answer is going to be. So let's look at number 2. We look at the same picture, and this one says, again, as x approaches 0 from the positive direction, so again from the right. So if we come from the right and we get closer to an x value of 0, what y value am I approaching? I'm approaching 2. Same y value. Okay? So these are what we call one-sided limits because we have a limit and we're coming from one direction. In number 1, we're coming from the left-hand side or the negative direction. And in number 2, we're coming from the right-hand side or the positive direction. So these are called one-sided limits. Now we have something called a two-sided limit, and basically what that means is when we have a function and the one-sided limit coming from the left is equal to the one-sided limit coming from the right, which is the case here. If you look back again, look, both your answers are 2. Then we say that the function's limit as x approaches 0 would just be 2. So when the limit from the left and the limit from the right are the same exact number, then we say that the limit as x approaches 0, two-sided limit, is equal to 2. So let's look at another example. Different picture this time. So we're going to say that, again, this is the picture of f of x, and we're going to do the same thing as we did on the last video. So if you look at it, it's asking, again, same thing, the limit of the function as x approaches 0 from the negative direction. Now, if we come from the negative direction, remember we're coming from the left-hand side, and so we're getting closer to an x value of 0. There, follow the arrow there. What y value am I approaching? And if you look at that y value is -3. Let's look at number 2. Limit of the function f of x as x approaches 0 from the positive direction. Again, remember, positive direction, like a number line, means coming from the right-hand side. As we're going toward an x value of 0, what y value am I approaching? And in this case, I'm approaching a y value of 1. Now notice I use the word approaching. It doesn't mean I have to hit that y value of 1 because here we have an open circle at that y value of 1. It just means I need to approach it or get closer to it. Now if you look at these two examples, they are one-sided limits, but notice that their y values, their answers, are different numbers. So in this case, if we're looking at the two-sided limit, my pen does not want to work here, here we go, of the function as x approaches 0, we would say it does not exist. Does not exist because the one-sided limits in example number 1 and 2 are not the same number. So in order for the two-sided limit to work, then the answers for example number 1 and example number 2 would have to be the same number. Okay?